Can the Kings build on their recent win that snapped that losing skid? We'll find out right away and talk about it next on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the LA Kings got their first win of 2024, snapping that 8-game losing skid with a much-needed 5-2 win over a very good Carolina Hurricanes team on Monday. The Kings are right back in action tonight, wrapping up that season-high 6-game road trip with another tough game in Dallas against the Stars. Checking out the matchup, Kings check in with a record of 21-11-8, third place in the Pacific Division, sixth place in the Western Conference, and 11th in the NHL in points with 50. Kings are 14-4-3 on the road, 1-2-2 on this current road trip. Stars check in at 25-12-5, third place in the Central Division, fourth place in the Western Conference, and seventh in the NHL in points with 55. The Stars are 13-8-2 at home this season. They are coming off a 3-1 win over the Blackhawks in Chicago on Saturday. Dallas had a season-high 3-game losing streak to start 2024, but they have since won 3 of their last 4 games. Kings are 9th in the NHL in goals scored per game at 3.33, second in the NHL in goals allowed per game at 2.50. The Stars are 3rd in the NHL in goals scored per game at 3.64, and 15th in the league in goals allowed per game at 3.05. The Kings moved up to 15th in the NHL on the power play. Right now, they're at 21.1%. Certainly that game in Detroit where they had the 3 power play goals helped that out a little bit. And the Kings are still number 1 in the NHL on the penalty kill at 87.1%. For Dallas, they are 10th in the NHL on the power play, 23.5%, 3rd in the NHL on the penalty kill at 85.2%. Checking in on who to watch for the Dallas Stars tonight. They are led by their young star, Jason Robertson. He leads them in points with 43, even though he's not had quite the same year so far this season that he had last year, but still a very, very solid young player. The future for the Dallas Stars. Rope Hintz and veteran Joe Pavelski still getting it done. The old San Jose Shark moves on to Dallas and just continues to get it done. Pavelski and Hintz are tied for the Stars team lead in goals with 17 apiece. Also keep an eye out for Matt Duchene, an NHL veteran who's landed in Dallas and is having a good year. Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn are still around, and defenseman Miro Heiskanen is one of the best in the NHL as well. As for the 2 netminders, the Kings are expected to start Cam Talbot after David Rittich got the start and won on Monday. So back-to-back games for the Kings. Talbot did drop to 7th in the NHL in goals against average after allowing 5 goals in 2 periods in Detroit. His goals against average is now at 2.35. He is now 10th in the NHL in save percentage at .918. So that tough game against the Red Wings certainly affected his numbers a bit. Hopefully he can bounce back tonight and get those numbers back to where they have been most of the season with a good performance against the Stars. As for Dallas, they're expected to go with standout goaltender Jake Ottinger. Now, he is coming off of an injury. He missed 12 games with a groin injury. He just came back the other day and won in his first start back against Nashville. So they may be watching his starts here at this point. They don't want to put him in and have him resume, the full duties right away. But it looks like he's going to get the start against the Kings. We shall see. If not, it could be Scott Wedgwood. But for Ottinger, he's had not a great season by his standards so far, for sure. The injury, also in the mix as well, but he's 32nd in the NHL in save percentage at 902 and 32nd in the NHL in goals against average at 2.96. His record this year is 12-8-2. Stars are coming into the season as one of the top teams in the West and definitely a playoff team. They have so far pretty much performed up to expectations. It will be a major surprise if the Dallas Stars are not a playoff team at the end of the year, if they're not one of the top three teams in the Central Division to get that automatic playoff spot. They are pretty much where they were expected to be, one of the top teams in the West, and that is exactly where they are. So a very tough test for the LA Kings coming into tonight's game. So what are some of the keys for the LA Kings to get a big win tonight? Well, I think number one, head home on a high note. The longest road trip of the season has been a real challenge. It's been the toughest test the Kings have had to go through so far. It hasn't gone as well as we would have liked, but to close it out with 2 straight wins would feel great. 2-2-2 seems a hell of a lot better than what we've watched over the last couple of weeks. So a big win for the Kings tonight could really wrap up what's been a tough test on a very high note. Number 2, build off the win. Understandably, the Kings were feeling good after snapping that 8-game losing skid. They finally get to feel good about themselves a little bit. Keep that going now that you have a reminder of what it feels like to win and to feel good and to have some fun. Hopefully that feeling can motivate you to get it again on back-to-back nights. The losing skid's over, so now maybe the Kings can play with, a little bit less tight than they have been and with a bit more confidence after that nice win over a very good Carolina team. And the third key for the Kings is, to me, the more the merrier. One of the reasons the Kings' success had so much success before this recent losing streak was because of the depth scoring. Kings finally got that in their last game against Carolina. 6 different players had multi-point games. 8 different players got at least 1 point. Seems like an obvious thing, but the more players that are involved, the tougher a team is to defend, and the more options you have, and the more success you're going to have. So if you missed it, the LA Kings did lose Blake Lizotte in the first period of that game against the Hurricanes, a lower body injury, and he didn't return. We don't have any further details on exactly what the injury is, but Lizotte is not expected to play tonight. That's not really a surprise. So this is the second time this season that Blake Lizotte has suffered an injury and is going to miss some time. Again, we don't know how long. He hasn't been put on injured reserve, so it looks like at the moment it's a day-to-day thing. But when Lizotte was hurt earlier in the season, Trevor Moore slid in as the center on the 4th line. We did see Alex Laferriere take Lizzo's spot on the penalty kill Monday against Carolina, so we'll see if he gets that assignment as well. And Samuel Fagemo has been recalled from the AHL by the LA Kings, having such a great season since being reclaimed by the Kings off waivers earlier this year. He was one of the leading goal scorers in the AHL, second, as a matter of fact, with 20 goals in 24 games. So he's been red hot since returning to Ontario, and he finally has gotten the call up. I would have thought it was something that could have happened sooner, but because of the injury to Lizotte, Samuel Fagemo is getting the call up. Now, are we going to see him tonight against the Stars? We don't know because the Kings didn't have a morning skate today, but I would say it's unlikely considering what we saw with Brant Clark recently. I think Todd McClellan likes to give a player a couple of practices with the team before they put them into the lineup. So I would expect to see Samuel Fagemo in the lineup against Nashville, his old team, for a few games, where he was claimed off waivers by the Predators earlier this year, and then they put him on waivers and the Kings got him back. But I don't think we're going to see him tonight, but that is not official. Speaking of the lineup that we will see tonight for the LA Kings, this isn't official either. But with Blake Lizotte out of the lineup, it's going to affect the bottom 6. The top 6 for the Kings should stay unchanged: Kopitar, Byfield, Kempe, Danault, Fiala, and more. As for the bottom 6, Jarrett Anderson Dolan will probably be in the lineup either on the third or the fourth line. Arthur Kaliev will likely draw back into the lineup either on the third or the fourth line, and Carl Grundstrom will be there in the mix as well. Not sure where the trio of wingers, Anderson Dolan, Grundstrom, and Kaliev exactly are going to line up, but all 3 of those guys should be in the lineup tonight with we expect Trevor Lewis centering that fourth line. And defensively, looks like we'll probably see Brant Clark back in the lineup as he and Jordan Spence, it looks like, are going to alternate starts for right now. When the Kings return to LA, it's possible Brant Clark could go back to Ontario, but we could see Brant Clark back in there for Jordan Spence. So definitely some lineup changes for the Kings coming up tonight, and we're not going to know exactly what it's going to look like until the puck drops in Dallas, but kind of an overview of what we're expecting to see tonight. Again, top six forwards will be unaffected. Bottom six, though, will be a bit jumbled up again. And if Samuel Fagemo is inserted into the lineup, that'll obviously affect things as well. All right, so now that road trip is just about over, what can the Kings get out of this ultimately? Was the goal that they wanted going into this trip still possibly could be accomplished? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying your tickets to your next big event. I don't, because I use Gametime, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I personally use Gametime to buy tickets to NHL and NFL games this year, and I am a very satisfied customer. The app is very easy to navigate and use. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the best price guaranteed. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. And I love how you can view the seat, the view from your seat when you're looking on the app, so you know exactly the view you're going to get from your seat. All-in prices show you the total up front. You know you're getting a great deal, and there are no hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps on the app. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories in sports with all the local experts from Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So the Kings are wrapping up this long road trip, and I did want to show you and tell you about a quote from head coach Todd McLellan after the last win against the Carolina Hurricanes, and of course snapping that losing skid. What did the Kings head coach have to say about it? Well, he said, quote, "I think relief was a word you'd probably hear from a lot of guys, but I'd rather choose reward because we did do a lot of things the right way, and we have on this trip. We finally got the reward for it. So it's a good sign for us. Guys dug in and we pulled ourselves out of it, and now we've got to find a way to stay out of it," end quote. That was head coach Todd McLellan of the LA Kings after snapping that season high 8-game losing skid. And we talked about this as the Kings were going on this season high 6-game road trip. We thought, and they weren't playing great going into the road trip, and we thought maybe the Kings could use this road trip as a focal point for turning things around. You know, you go on the road, you're, getting with your teammates kind of 24/7. We talked about it. The holidays were just happening and a lot of things are going on. Now you're getting away from all that. You're on the road where you've been so good all season long. Seemed like the perfect opportunity for maybe the Kings to get back on track. Well, as far as the results go, that has not worked out the way we would have hoped. But I do wonder if ultimately what the Kings were hoping to accomplish on this road trip can still be something that is accomplished, because this certainly didn't go as expected. The Kings certainly have been put through the fire. They got burned a little bit, but they are coming through it now, still standing, and maybe going through that adversity. Coming out the other side is just what they needed to kind of bond, get together, and move forward and hopefully be better for it. Now, of course, what's going to happen over the next stretch of games is going to prove whether that could be the case or not. There is an important stretch of games here coming up for the LA Kings as we get ready to go into the All-Star break. Now, the Kings have 7 more games before, or I should say after tonight's game, before the about week and a half break for the All-Star festivities. So again, after the Kings play this game in Dallas, they head home. They've got 4 home games: Nashville, the New York Rangers, San Jose, and Buffalo, and then 3 road games: Colorado, St. Louis, and Nashville. And then that will close out the month of January. And then that will take us to the All-Star break again, where the Kings will be off for about, I think it's about 8 days, 9 days, something like that. So this is a very crucial stretch of games for the LA Kings before we get to that All-Star break. It's not, in other sports, well, baseball, I guess, and I guess the NBA, usually that All-Star break comes around the halfway point of the season. For the NHL, it's a little bit farther than that. It's not exactly the halfway point. It's probably the halfway point in a couple of weeks. The LA Kings actually are playing their 41st game of the season tonight of the 82 game schedule. So after the game tonight for the Kings, they will have been through the halfway point of this season. So again, I think, you break up the season sometimes into chunks. Certainly this road trip was a big chunk for the Kings, and now they've got another one coming up, coming home, and then having this stretch of games, and then having the All-Star break. So again, hopefully the Kings have come together as a team, battling through adversity, and now an important stretch of games coming up for LA. And then they go to the All-Star break. And then after the break, there's also a chance Victor Arvidsson could be coming back very soon after as well to give the Kings another boost. So that's something to look forward to on the horizon. But again, I think wrapping it up tonight and then starting on Thursday at home against Nashville starts a very crucial stretch for the Kings. Again, hopefully they've come together after this tough time and they can use this to go forward, learn from it, and be a team that knows that they can battle through just about anything and hopefully come out the other side, start to have success, and be the team that we've seen for most of this season. Now, heading into tonight's action, where are the Kings in the playoff race? And even though, as I mentioned, tonight's game is going to wrap up the halfway point of the season, I think it's not too early to keep track of what's going on with the playoff picture on a daily basis. And so that's what we're going to do starting right now. So again, the Kings have 50 points, third place in the Pacific. Right now, they are holding on to one of those automatic playoff spots. LA is 5 points back of Vegas with 4 games in hand on the Golden Knights for second place. Vegas is off tonight on Tuesday, so the Kings do have a chance to gain some ground on second place with a win or a shootout or overtime loss against the Stars. The Kings hold a 3-point lead on both Edmonton and Seattle for that third spot in the Pacific. The Oilers are in action tonight. They're hosting the Maple Leafs, while the Kraken are also in action, playing in New York against the Rangers. So a couple of big-time opponents for the two teams that are hot on the Kings' heels for that third spot in the Pacific Division. So we'll keep an eye on those two games, talk about them tomorrow. And LA is just 1 point up on Nashville for a potential wildcard spot. Hopefully that won't be the case. We want that third spot to get the automatic spot. But should the Oilers catch the Kings, or should the Kings slide back, then a wild card spot is in play, and that means we have to keep track of what's going on with the Nashville Predators. Predators are off tonight. Kings host the Predators in their first home game back off this road trip, so a big game coming up between LA and Nashville on Thursday. And right now, again, the Kings just a 1 point lead on Nashville in case there would be any kind of wild card matchup there with the Predators. All right, it is going to be a day late, but worth the wait. We have a rain report coming up here next on Locked on LA Kings, your team every day. Adrian Kempe scores a hat trick and the LA Kings win the Stanley Cup. That sounds great, right? Well, you know what else sounds great? You winning 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app as the official daily fantasy app of Locked on NHL Networks. Sleeper's our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you pick more or less based on goals, assists, points, saves, and more. And Sleeper offers 100 times payouts. And although we obviously love the NHL, it's not completely all about hockey. You've got the NBA going on in full swing, and NFL playoffs are going on right now as well. It is a great time to get in on all the amazing sports action. Make the right picks, and you could win big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked on NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. The LA Kings face the Dallas Stars 5 p.m. Pacific time tonight. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. And if you don't have ESPN Plus or Hulu, you're not going to be able to watch tonight's game. So that may be an option for you to listen to Nick and Daryl on the LA Kings radio network with Sirius XM. Again, search SXM on the app, search LA Kings. We do have an Ontario Reign report, get you caught up on what's going on with the Kings AHL affiliate, and a successful past week for the Ontario Reign. 2-0-1 was the record last Tuesday, 1 week ago from today. The Reign beat the San Jose Barracuda 4-1. Samuel Fagemo had a pair of goals in that one, 17 and 18 for him. Akil Thomas and Charles Udon each had goals as well. Eric Portillo was in net. He got the win, allowing 1 goal on 37 shots. Thursday, the Reign did lose a tough one to the Calgary Wranglers, 2-1 in overtime. That was up in Calgary. Samuel Fagemo, though, continued his red-hot play with a pair of goals again, goals 19 and 20 for him. Eric Portillo got the start once again. He took the loss in this one. He allowed 3 goals on 36 shots. And then on Friday, a rematch in Calgary against the Wranglers, and the Reign get the 2-1 victory in this one. Akil Thomas with a pair of goals, the Ontario veteran, goals numbers 12 and 13 on the season for him. And Jacob Ingham was in net. He allowed 1 goal on 37 shots to get the victory. We'll talk more about him in a second. Right now, the Ontario Reign are 20-11-4, third place in the Pacific Division in the American Hockey League, kind of having a similar season as the LA Kings, minus the big road winning streak and minus the losing streak. But the record and the standings kind of similar to what the Kings are going through. As for the Ontario Reign, they are playing tonight and tomorrow in Canada against the Abbotsford Canucks. Saturday, they'll be back home to host Coachella Valley Firebirds, and then Sunday at home again against the Bakersfield Condors. So 4 games coming up between now and next week for the Ontario Reign. So we talked about it last week. If you recall, the Kings signed NHL veteran goalie Aaron Dell to a tryout, and he is on the Ontario Reign roster, but he has yet to see any game action. The Reign are currently carrying 3 goalies, Aaron Dell, Eric Portillo, and Jacob Ingham. And Ingham was called up from the ECHL, the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, when Phoenix Copley went down, and then the Kings had to call David Rittich up from Ontario to be the Kings' number 2 netminder. Well, Jacob Ingham has been really good for the Ontario Reign since his call-up. He has a record of 3-0. He's allowed just 7 total goals in 4 appearances. His goals against average is 1.96. His save percentage is .941. Now, it is a small sample size, but excellent numbers for Jacob Ingham. And this is a guy who missed all of last season due to injury, so a great comeback story. And if Jacob Ingham can continue this type of a season, certainly the Kings are optimistic about what they got going on as far as younger goaltenders. And Ingham is not as young as Eric Portillo, who just came out of college. But he's a younger goalie, certainly much younger than the likes of David Rittich and Aaron Dell and Phoenix Copley. So the depth right now in net for the Kings, a little bit better than expected, I think, going into the season. Certainly, Ingham was a bit of an unknown because of coming off of that injury, but great to see him playing very well and taking advantage of an opportunity with the Ontario Reign. Also, potential big news for the Ontario Reign as forward Alex Turcotte could return to action tonight. Not official. We'll definitely report on this on tomorrow's show if it happens. But the former number 1 pick of the LA Kings, Alex Turcotte, has been out since December the 9th with what was called a lower body injury. Now, if you recall, the play he was injured on, he took an illegal elbow to the head. And he is a guy who has had concussion issues. And so we kind of put 2 and 2 together. But the Kings have called it a lower body injury. I mean, or the Reign, I guess I should say, call it a lower body injury, and we'll take their word for it. And maybe it was one of those cases where you get hit high and you end up going down awkwardly and actually end up injuring a knee or an ankle or something like that. So we'll see. Hopefully it was the lower body injury and not anything concussion related, because he's had a history of that. But as I said, Alex Turcotte should be back very soon for the Ontario Reign, could be back as soon as tonight. So if that's the case, we'll definitely report on it tomorrow, let you know if that was the case and how he did in his first game back. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Wednesday, obviously we will give you a full recap of the game in Dallas against the Stars. Thursday, we're going to preview the Kings home game against the Predators. And then on Friday, recap that game. And also we'll have another LA Kings fan feedback show. We'll also update you on any Kings related news throughout the week and also have a mid-season report card for the LA Kings. If you want to send an email for the feedback show or just send an email to just connect with the show at any time, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. We'd love for you to stay interactive on social media, on X, on Twitter, Instagram, at Locked On LA Kings. And I should have mentioned you can also leave your comments on any of the shows, anything that's going on with the Kings on the YouTube episodes as well. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow, hopefully after a big Kings win. And as always, go Kings go.